Quick recap. Those of you who interact with me on social media are probably aware of the situation that I had with my copy of Dimmuborger. As for those of you who don't know what happened to this figure, I got this about the same time as all of the other early adopters, about a month ago. I pulled it out of the box, started fiddling around with it, and then transformed it, and with no effort and no pressure applied to it, this joint shattered. So I contacted the seller to see if I could work something out. That happens to be Joy Toy World, and I want to be clear, they were pretty helpful about this situation. They went to the trouble of contacting the manufacturer to ask for spare parts. I have never had a seller offer to do that. So I got this mystery package in the mail a few days ago. As of the exact moment this was filmed, I had no idea what's in this, but it's from Shanghai and I have to assume that this is the part. I thought this would be a good opportunity to share my experience with this with you in real time. Let's take a look at what we got. Man, they packaged the crap out of this thing. It's triple bubble wrapped. Good Lord, I knew it. I had a hunch they'd probably just send an entire leg, but instead they sent two. So I've got a spare leg, I guess? Yeah, I'll be damned. This is the culprit right here. Just looking at the way this joint was built, I really had my doubts I was going to be able to install that piece if they had just sent me the purple plastic part, because it's so interconnected with that pin joint there and the rest of the components that make up the leg. So I got to give major props to Joy Toy World for going the extra mile on this. They absolutely stepped up to the plate, and I'm here to tell you right now, their customer service is excellent. This is the first time I've ever had to contact them with an issue, and they were very responsive to this situation, so I definitely recommend buying from them. On to the big question, can I install this thing without breaking it? We're going to find out. As it would predictably go, this broken joint did indeed shear right off with no effort whatsoever. This part was absolutely going to fail no matter what. I didn't expect that to happen while I was filming this repair, but the timing couldn't have been more spot on. The problem is that ball joint is on there super tight. I'm looking for a seam on this plastic just to make sure that if I do yank this thing out, the center chest piece isn't going to separate or crack. I'm looking for an easy way in there, and there doesn't appear to be one in the way it's manufactured. There's an exposed part of the ball socket on the interior. I'm going to see if I can force it out right at that spot. I think what I could do is apply pressure to the interior and pull on this ball joint on the outside right at the joint, and that might pop it out. This isn't going to help, so I'm going to attempt to pull this thing off by brute force. Other than possibly breaking the chest piece, I feel like I've got nothing to lose at this point, so I'm going to give it my best shot. So with a little effort, I finally got it out. It took a bit more force than I thought it would, and I did gouge up the plastic around the shoulder a little bit, but it's not too bad. But importantly, it doesn't appear to be stretched or stressed or otherwise compromised. It's just gouged up around the outside, which isn't pretty, and I'm not super happy about that, but the interior of the ball cup appears to be completely intact with no stress marks. I'd wager this central chest piece is a tougher piece of plastic. One more look at that, and I mean, yeah, that joint just completely disintegrated. Now I'm going to see if I can stick this straight in. And with a moderate amount of force, it popped right in there. It's a tad loose, but it's not too bad. If I feel the need, I think I could put a light coat of floor polish or something like that on it to tighten it up a bit, but I'm not super worried about that right now. All I can say is, as far as I'm concerned, this issue is resolved and my little dude here is repaired. Thank you again, Joy Toy World. Alright, let's get on with this review. Welcome back, everybody. So, yes, again, as you can see, my copy of Dimmuborger does indeed have a fixed leg here, and that joint appears to be in pretty good shape, so I think we're ready to go for this review. So, as far as this review goes, I'm going to talk about the contents of the package, what came with the figure itself. I'm going to talk about this bonus item here, which is frickin' sweet. I can't wait to show you that. Yeah, we'll get into figure details, all about this Dimmuborger figure, of course, and we're going to do a transformation demo. I'm going to follow that up with the box grade, and then we're going to wrap it up with some final thoughts there. So let's jump right in. Just to start off, we'll clear some stuff out of the way here. As far as what comes in the box, you've got instructions, you've got some character cards here, and a whole bunch of other stuff, catalogs and character card and all that kind of stuff here. So we'll take a look at that. I haven't even opened this stuff yet, so I am curious what we got in here. So it's a pretty nice looking character card, but unfortunately, as is the trend with 5.2 Toys here recently, they've decided to stop doing character bios, which is kind of unfortunate because I like that extra little bit of attention to detail there. But it's a nice looking image of our little goat boy here, so. And I am curious what I've got for collector cards here. So we've got one of the rare praying mantis release called Pulse, and we have Joliet here. We have, is this Lava? The horse? Not remembering straight off the top of my head for some reason. I need to review this guy sometime. And we got one of the pterodactyl. I believe this one is called Havoc, if I remember correctly. I don't actually have this one, but I have the firefighter equivalent of that. And we've got our little prairie dog friends here, the Desert Assault Squad. So, nice looking set of cards. And I should say all of those cards are pretty high quality pieces. Not laminated, but they all have like a lenticular, almost like a holographic effect on it. So, pretty nice. As far as the package itself, let's look at some details on this thing. So yes, on the front, they're advertising that they come with collector cards. On the top there, you've got BB-72 Dimmuborger, and I'm not a real big fan of this particular box art. Generally, I keep all my Beastbox packaging because I really dig the artwork that comes on the outside of the box. This isn't the highest quality one, in my opinion. I think they just kind of overdid it with the lightning and the sort of like airbrushed effect or whatever. Got more details about the little goat boy here, and we'll talk about those extra horns in a bit. Details on the back here. So for transformation difficulty, this is considered about average, and I've transformed it a couple times, and I would say that's accurate. See, designed by X2R here, of course, their in-house design team. And of course, this is a land animal, so it's got the land animal faction symbol there. More details about manufacturing and, you know, copyrights and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a little bit of a new thing here. They're starting to advertise other figures on the side of their packaging. These are a couple of other fairly recent releases. Both are excellent. You got Neo Geo and Gale. I highly recommend checking out both of these. We're going to get some stuff out of the way here and start talking about the figure. So what do we have to say about Dimmuborger here? First off, I want to say this figure is based on what is known as an ibex, which is a type of mountain goat, basically. They're notoriously excellent climbers, and they can go just about straight up a sheer cliff. Apparently, they have sharpened hooves that kind of aids them into digging into terrain and that kind of thing. This particular figure, of course, is kind of a silver, purple, and black color scheme. Got some excellent paint applications on here, a lot of really cool graphic details and that kind of thing. Some lighter, almost kind of like a metallic lavender color, kind of highlighting on the joints there. Got these beautiful transparent horns, which are somewhat articulated. Not to an enormous degree, but yeah, they can flex and move and that kind of thing. So you're not stuck with them in a single position at all times, no matter what. You can kind of articulate these and give your little guy a little bit of personality here. So it's got a lot of cool detail around the head and the face and whatever. First off is these horizontal eye slits. That's kind of a common thing with the goats. Got a little bit of silver paint application around the forehead. These very goat-like trapezoidal wedge ears. Got a little bit of goatee action here, kind of a double goatee there. That's pretty cool. A few little spots of orange accents on here, so that's a very nice touch. One thing that is interesting to me is you have white paint applications on most of the legs and that kind of thing. On the left shoulder, they opted to do that with kind of a metallic silver paint application with the land animal faction symbols. Interesting little bit of differentiation there. So overall, it's a beautiful figure, and it's very nicely articulated, so we'll start with the head here. You do have an opening and closing jaw, of course. That's pretty common for beast boxes these days. Head has quite a bit of articulation. You can definitely twist and turn, bob it up and down and that kind of thing. And even the neck, if you separate it from this back collar piece, you can get the neck to pivot left and right, so you've got an additional range of motion there with the head that you wouldn't have had on any of the other, like equine, the horse and the ox type figures. So full range of motion on the legs. Yeah, you can pivot at the elbow, you can bend at this joint. I guess it's only going to go down about 25 degrees or something like that. Do have a fair amount of articulation with the hooves. You know, they can twist left and right. They can go up and down. It's on a ball joint here. That is part of the transformation, but it also cleverly doubles as more articulation for the figure, of course. Yeah, same for the hind legs. You got quite a bit of range of motion back here. And somewhat in the midsection, you can kind of twist the spine. It won't twist left and right, but it can flex up and down. So that is kind of a nice little bit of detail. And you can actually get it pretty good range. So you could get this little guy into pretty much a sitting position if you want to, and actually pretty easily. So overall, yeah, it's beautifully detailed, has great paint applications. I feel like the joints here are pretty solid. The one joint that is kind of an issue, and I mentioned this before, is the leg that I had to replace. That's not entirely unexpected just because of the way that ball socket had to fit in there. But I think I could tighten that up a little bit with a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of oil or floor polish or something. So not a total loss there. My figure is repaired. That's the only thing that really matters. So as far as what else came with the figure, I did not mention before. But of course, if you're familiar with Beastboxes, they all come with a box charger, at least the 5cm figures do. And it's just a regular open and closing type box. And the newer style here have these pegs on them, so you can attach accessories if you want to. 3mm and 5mm, so we're going to set that aside a second, and as I was alluding to, it comes with this extra set of horns. So honestly, this is really just kind of a decorative piece. I think a lot of people probably would enjoy, you know, adding these to the figure just to kind of give it a little more character and that kind of thing. But personally, I could have done without these. They're fine. They're cool, but I don't get a whole lot of value out of these. And as far as that goes, the best way to apply them is by taking the ears off and attaching them to the side of the head. I don't know, to me, having to take these pieces off, that's another opportunity to be missing some parts. That's not something I'm super into, but I kind of tend to prefer figures that are sort of a one and done piece, if you know what I mean. And the way you attach them is pretty simple. You just stick them in the side of the head there. And they'll attach like that. And most of the promo photos, and probably what you're going to see from a lot of other people, is they're probably going to have their figure about in that formation. Kind of a demon goat looking thing. So personally, I don't know. I think of things in terms of shapes, and I don't like this overall look. I have personally found that I prefer to have these sort of in contour with the other horns, so I kind of prefer the swept back look. So this is how I would do it if I'm going to display it with these horns at all. Just kind of happen to like this look a little bit better. That's just my personal opinion. You know, I got to give it that. They definitely do look pretty cool. In any event, this is sort of a semi-reboot of that equine mode. It's a pretty darn good one. Obviously, with this shape and type of figure, that leaves it open for other similar four-legged critters. So who knows what's next? Maybe we'll see a Lamb of God. Maybe a Llama God. So, as far as this figure's name goes, 52 Toys, their designers love their inside jokes. They love music, heavy metal, all that kind of stuff, and they love naming their figures after metal bands and that kind of thing. So, this particular figure derives its name from an actual location called Dimmuborger, which I believe is in Sweden. But there's also a metal band called Dimmuborger, which is also named after that location. So, that is what this goat is named for. Given this four-legged type of creature, it's almost like a soft reboot of the equine, the four-legged critter shape, or at least specialized for this particular, basically, you know, goats and sheep and that kind of thing. Moving on, we're going to talk about this figure's bonus item, which is one of the best I've seen in quite a while here, so definitely looking forward to showing this off. And the setup for this particular bonus item is it's a bunch of pieces that are form-fitted to fit around the outside of the critter. You got plenty of ports and connection points for this particular figure, as is usual for a lot of beast boxes. So, and with this particular bonus item, that absolutely works to this figure's advantage. So we'll take a look at that. Gist of it is that there's a lot of parts connected together, so you basically just need to separate everything out. Start by getting rid of the centerpiece here. Pull that piece off, pull these off, pull that piece off. Like that, and then that. Okay. Then you just want to unfold some pieces, so you're going to rotate out the barrel of these cannons here, like so. Going to flip up these little side disc things, just like so. They've got a nice snap to them. Now the cannons are going to connect to the top side of these armor plates here, so you're just kind of going for that one right past the handlebar piece there. So basically at this point, yeah, you just need to slide that peg out with that little lever there. That'll allow it to connect to the back side of this armor plate. You're going for the port that's directly behind this purple handle here, so it's going to slide that on there like so. And at this point, I don't think it necessarily matters the exact angle that you have this on, because we're going to resolve that when everything gets put together on the figure. We're going to add it to the other piece. Whoops, that one right there. Make sure we have that peg slid out there like so, and we'll connect it to Now these pieces are going to connect by the 5mm port, kind of right above the shoulder blade here. And it's kind of at a funny angle that you have to put it on. I mean, intuitively, I think you would probably want to try to put it on straight, but you kind of have to put it at an angle. So it's sort of like hooking up above the shoulder, sort of. And then you have the cannon sort of at an elevated level above the back. Connect that like so. Again, I don't think the exact angle matters. So then we're going to take these 3mm pegs and attach them directly to the shoulder, and they'll just mount on like that. And you got about that look, and I think this is fantastic. This looks so damn cool. And one thing that's great about these pieces is they do have little ports here where these front-mounted shoulder cannons are, so if you have like a blast effect or whatever, you can definitely plug that in there. A little extra cool action effect there, if you will, so yeah, very cool. I love the style of this particular piece. Makes him look like a little war machine for sure, so... yeah, that is very freaking cool. And this is but wait, there's more situation. Because Dimmuborger is so modular, he has one other mode, and that is... again, that is freaking awesome. All kidding aside, I think it's time to give this little fella a transformation demo. So we're going to remove some pieces here and get him set up. Again, 5-2 Toys has gotten pretty slick with many of their bonus items. They've started to make their figures more mecha and battle-oriented with more realistic-looking weapons. Kind of futuristic weapons, form-fitted for the character and all that kind of thing. And in many cases, they have just gotten more and more awesome with their bonus item designs, so very much digging that. And we are going to remove the horns, get him down to his base character form. The thing I got to point out about these horns is they're not super easy to get in, and they're not especially easy to get out too, because they've got kind of a ball joint on there. You kind of have to twist it to get it out. Otherwise you'll pop the horn off of the ball joint, and you'll be stuck with that in the side of the head. Just like that. So we've got to reattach it and do it again. Oh boy. Yeah, and then there's that. But not to worry, Dimmuborger may lose his head, but he can get it right back. So there again, we're going to reattach the ear pieces. So we can get started with that transformation demo. It's actually been a few weeks since I've transformed this thing, so I'm probably going to go a little slow and steady on this one just to make sure I get it right. So first step, if it's not separated, and there is sort of a notch and tab on the back of the figure here, you just want to make sure that's separated. And what that does, this is an unusual transformation for a Beastbox, or at least the first of its kind, that gives you access to these side skirts on the neck, and you're going to pull those out, and then there's another tab and notch connection. You're just going to fold them up and around, get it connected on the side like that. Do the same on the other side. Just like so. Now with those pieces pulled out, what you'll want to do is go ahead and you'll just want to reconnect the neck to the back of the collar piece there. Then you're going to unhook these chest plates and just pop them out like so. And then you're going to want to rotate them up and get them into position just below the collar, about like that. And you got about that look going on there. Then you're going to take these beautiful horns and turn them sideways. So we're going to go about 45 degrees. And they do have a little intermeshing teeth here, so you're just going to want to press them together. Make sure they're connected like that. Then you'll bring the tips of the horns down. Just do one at a time there, I guess. Yeah, about like that. Now you're going to take the head and rotate it from the top of the neck down into the cavity there. But you're not just going to tuck the head into the cavity. What's going to happen here is you've got these tab and groove connections here and here, and then you're going to flatten it up against the back of the neck there. So we'll just go on like that. That'll secure in place real nice. You got about that look. You're going to do sort of a double bend with the hooves and the forelimbs of the front legs here. So we're going to take these. There again, that's another tab and groove connection. So you're just going to fold that up and get it in that space. And you want to be careful to line it up right, because I've had this hoof pop off a few times. So it can pop out. It's just on a ball socket there. And of course you can pop it right back in if that happens, but it does take a specific type of alignment to get that to line up correctly. So, and there again, I did end up popping it out here. So Yeah, for some reason, this one's kind of budging on me a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and keep transforming it and see if that's not going to be a problem here, but it should lock into position just like this hoof on the left leg here, but I don't remember this one budging a little bit. It's just kind of fighting me. So we're going to rotate the forelimb up at about a 90-degree angle like that. Yeah, I don't know, that one on this side, it's... So far, it doesn't seem to be a problem for the transformation, but we're going to find out here pretty quick if it is or not. There's just about a 2 or maybe 3 millimeter gap that it's not collapsing down into like the hoof on the other side, but we'll see. And for the next step, what you want to do is you want to bring the forelimbs up to the side of the head like that on both sides. And then what you're going to do, and this is the part that failed on me, for what that's worth, you're going to swing it around from that interior purple hinge here. So we're going to flip that up and around. And what's going to happen is there's a notch and a tab connection on the interior here. So basically you're just going to connect those parts. And there's additional tab and notch connection right here too. So it's a pretty secure spot on both sides. So we'll just get that on there. Push it in like so, like that. We'll flip this piece around, up and over. And we'll start connecting those tabs in. Scrunch it up just a little bit, and I'm starting to see the side of a box here, so pretty cool. Now for the tail, what you want to do is bring that down like so. Then you're going to take this back end gray piece here, and that's going to fold up and over like that. And there is yet another tab and notch connection on the interior here. It's connected to the back of the tail, so you're just going to want to rotate that around, get it connected to the back side there. Now from here, we're going to open up this thigh piece. It's going to come up and over about like that. Get about that shape, do it on the other side. Then we're going to fold the knee joint, I guess, is what you might call that, up and around, about like that for now. Do the same on the opposite side here. Fold that up and over, tuck it in, about like that. Now we're going to rotate these pieces forward, about like that, roughly at a 90-degree angle to the back of the body there. And then what's going to happen is you get another peg and hole connection, and you're going to need to kind of budge this piece over and in so that it'll fit into that space. And there's also this 5 millimeter port that's going to line up with that hole right there. So you just kind of have to wiggle it to get it to push in, and you just want to make sure it's lined up both places and push it in like so. We'll do the same on the other side, just like that. And it connects nicely, so we got another flat side happening here. Now on the underbelly, we're going to make sure that this sliding piece is up in and about that position right here. Then we're going to fold the whole thing over, up and over like so. And what we're looking to do, or we're looking to get this tab slid into that notch, and I believe it's the one on the far side here. So we're going to fold that up and around. So one thing I did is I didn't get that post lined up correctly, so that's going to create a little bit of a problem getting it lined up. You might find it a little bit precarious to get that particular tab into that groove. And you also have the issue of these hooves possibly popping out because they're on ball joints here. I mean, you do have a little bit of flexibility with the forelimb to pull that out and like readjust it if needed. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. Yeah, I got it inside there, so we got that scrunched up. That's good. Try the other side here. But here's another thing too, is those are not critical connection points. You don't have to have the back of this hoof pushed into that notch. I would definitely recommend doing it so you have a more secure connection for this figure on all sides, and it forms a pretty solid cube and all that stuff, but definitely do have a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of give on this particular figure. So that's kind of nice. I'm going to call that good though. So I got my scrunching done, got our box mode happening here. This thing is definitely a cube. So, fits right into its box charger. No problem. And there's something else that we can take a look at here. We're not quite done yet. Given the cavity and the amount of space here, this, it's not a great looking cube. It definitely gets the job done. It does have some solid flat sides and all that kind of stuff, but this is one with a lot of gap space and just, I don't know. Not the nicest looking cube, but, it definitely works. Be that as it may, though, with so much gap space, it kind of becomes the issue of what can you do with these horns. I'm sure there's a way to park these inside the cube somewhere so you sort of have storage for them. And it's probably not going to fit on that side. I don't think I want to try it on the sides there. I mean, most logically, you could just put them inside the front here, and they kind of fit inside that groove. even though they don't have a port or anything to plug into or whatever, so I'm gonna give that a shot. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna bend this 90 degrees like so. We're just gonna slide that in there. I mean, as long as you don't move it around too much, it looks like it'll fit in there just fine. So we'll do it on the other one. 90 degrees on that. Yeah, pop it in there. All right. Yeah, they definitely fit in there with room to spare. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend sliding your box around because you'll knock them out of place, obviously. But as far as that goes, it will still allow this figure to be fit inside of its box charger pretty securely. So just pop that in there. Very nice. Now it's time to give this mountain climbing, metal munching mercenary a box grade. This is my rating system of 6 categories of 5 points each for a total score of up to 30 points. 5-2 Toys never fails to excel with their caricatured take on a robotic version of a real-life animal, and they nailed the look and mobility of ibexes right down to the horizontal pupils in its eyes. 5 out of 5. The extra horns are kind of a cool little add-on, and this figure is overall just fun to mess around with. If you really want to take it to the next level, get Dimmuborger with its bonus item. It's seriously one of the best I've seen in a long time, and it fits this figure like a glove. 5 out of 5. Transformation is kind of on the complex side, but it's really not that hard to do. It's fairly intuitive and ultimately pretty fun. Not the greatest looking box mode. It does have some noticeable gaps, and the way the hooves work on those ball sockets is kind of janky, but it definitely does form a cube. 3 out of 5. Articulation is excellent, and Dimmuborger is pretty easy to pose. It would have made sense for the hooves to be able to flex backward, and it would have been nice for the midsection to be able to twist horizontally, but honestly, take a walk back to the bovine mold from just a few years ago. This figure's posability is leaps and bounds over what came before, so aside from very minor nitpicks, nothing's missing. 5 out of 5. So I have to qualify this category by pointing out that the way I rate a figure is mostly what I'm working with at the moment I film a review. Mine did come with a faulty joint, but at least from what I see on internet forums, that shattered joint was a very unusual case. Dimmuborger is otherwise pretty well built with firm joints and sturdy plastic for a score of 3 out of 5. This little goat boy is easy to pose, he looks great, he's fun to transform, and the excellent bonus guns and armor really takes it to another level for a score of 5 out of 5. And that brings the box grade total to 26 out of 30. That's a look at the next level 4-legged critter, Dimmuborger. This is one that 5-2 Toys could have just repurposed the existing bovine/equine mold for lava and toxic horn, but they didn't do that. And that just goes to show how damn committed they are to their craft, their care and attention to figure designs, and frankly, their growth as toy makers. One way or the other, figures like this are always a treat and always leave me waiting to see what they come up with next. For my part, I have much more to come with review ideas that'll easily take months to produce, so stay tuned. In the meantime, if you have a friend who's interested in Beastboxes, share this video, or leave me a like or a comment. Those are always appreciated. Thanks, and I'll catch you in the next one.
So, that XMattingly, huh? What'd you think of this review?